Welcome into the podcast. It's great to have you here today.
I know.
The pleasure's all mine, right?
The pleasure all yours. No, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm happy to be anywhere, to be honest with you.
I know it's been crazy. Like, I feel like this last year, not to go straight into doom and gloom, has just been like this massive vortex, and we're slowly
Well,
starting to see a light.
great. I'm nowhere. I'm where I've been for the last year. You're in your room. I'm in mine. It's not like I don't feel like I'm anywhere, but I'm thrilled to be talking to somebody.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
My wife is doubly thrilled that I'm talking to you and not her.
She's like, what for the first few months, it was great to have you home, because I'm sure she's used to you being gone all the time, and now you're home all the time.
Well, for those that don't know, I've been married for 41 years, and people have always asked me, Howie, how does that work? Like, what makes it work? And I can truly answer with total, I know that I'm right. This is the one element. I wasn't there. I was traveling, as you said, up to 300 nights a year doing live stand-up comedy. And obviously that all went away over a year ago, and I've been home. And we had our 40th anniversary in lockdown, and we've made it to 41, and it's really tough now, she says. For me, it's not here, but to spend any amount of time, like one podcast, I hope people enjoy this podcast and spending this amount of time with me. But I can tell you, as somebody who has spent every waking moment with myself, I'm not really a joy.
I love the fact that you're so honest, and it's not like, typical comedian self-deprecating humor, but like, you're just like, I'm kind of over it at this point of just being with myself. I feel the same way too, I think.
No, it's not self-deprecating humor. It's something that I've spent a fortune in. I've moved my my therapist into a whole new tax bracket as I sit here podcast. I am you have no idea how medicated I am. And prescription wise, I'm a mess, and I've always been open about my mental health issues. But I have to cope with me every waking moment. So I've spent my life trying to run away from myself, and now my poor wife has been locked in with me for over a year.
Yeah, well, I can certainly relate. I take medication as well for ADHD. I have it horribly. My son, who is 6, was just diagnosed with it as well. So I get it. Like, it's, and that's one of the things that I've always loved about you, is the fact that you are always so open and honest about it, that you don't pull any punches.
I wasn't, I'm 65 years old, and my generation, for them, well, I believe this generation too, there's a stigma attached to, mental health. And, I've become, in the last maybe just 20 years, a proponent of trying to remove that stigma, so that, and selfishly, so that I can openly take care of myself, and not worry about it. But when I first accidentally became open about the suffering that myself and many people go through, it scared the hell out of me, because I thought this is, being open about it is going to be the end of my career, is going to be an embarrassment for my family, not necessarily in that order. First, an embarrassment for my family and hard for them, and then maybe the end of my career. And I didn't know how it would be received. And when I became open about it was before podcasts, before Twitter, and before the internet. And even at that moment, it was scary. But I started getting letters of support, and people kind of being happy that they weren't alone, which made me happy that I wasn't alone. And now we're all alone together.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm very curious, because you mentioned it. Like, was this early on in your career when you became open about it, like during the St. Elsewhere days, or was this long after, when that ended and you started doing other things and becoming more public as far as comedy and performance and that sort of thing?
Well, comedy became, you're probably too young to remember, but comedy was before St. Elsewhere. I've been doing this for 45 years. The one thing that has been the staple of my existence has always been comedy. It's just that I got these fragmented audiences, the people that watch St. Elsewhere, weren't necessarily stand-up comedy fans. So I'd get letters at the time going, I have a bet with my husband that Dr. Fiscus, which is the character I played on St. Elsewhere, is not the same as the idiot who blows the glove up on his head. And I am the idiot that blows the glove up on my head. And then when I started doing like Saturday Morning and I did Bobby's World, people would say, well, you look like the guy that's on St. Elsewhere. And then until I did Deal or No Deal, that's the one thing that brought all the audiences together. But it was in the 90s that I was doing, it's in my book. I did an autobiography about a decade ago, and I kind of opened up about it, and it became a New York Times bestseller. But I talked about how I was on Howard Stern, and I was on the Howard Stern show and I think I was promoting my talk show. So it might've been in 99, or that's why I say 20 years ago. And he had a guy in the studio with me that was playing with his penis. He was playing with his own penis and he was touching it, but and then when he finished, he left the room, and my eyes, I'm a germaphobe. So my eyes became laser focused on the doorknob, because I was planning from that moment on internally, how am I going to escape this room? And how do I open that door when it's my time to leave? What do I touch? How am I going to do it? I'm wearing short sleeves. And then what happened was I didn't want to touch the doorknob. And I asked somebody else to open the door, and they saw that I was a little like, no, you open the door. And I went to grab a tissue to open the door with, and they pulled the tissue away from me. And what happened is I ended up having a panic attack, and, which feels like a heart attack. And I thought I was going to die. And in that moment, I said, Howard, really, seriously? I'm in therapy for this, and it's not a joke. And I'm about to, if you don't open the door for me, you're going to have to take me out on a gurney and take me to the hospital. And they ended up opening the door. And then when I got out to the other side of the door, I realized, oh shit, this was broadcast. I thought we were in a commercial break. And that was the eye-opening moment where I didn't set about to be public. But as it turned out, it turned into being a good thing, because that's where I started getting the outpouring of other people who are suffering the same way. And I realized that we're all hiding it. We all feel alone. And even today, there's a huge stigma. Mental health is not taken care of like our dental health, and so it's a big part of who I am and what I do. And in this last year, I didn't realize how much of a panacea stand-up comedy was for me. Just that ability to be out there in public, in real time, connecting with other human beings, even if it's just to get a laugh or maybe not get a laugh, that's a connection. And to lose that connection has been really, really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially for somebody like yourself, who is such a public figure, in the literal and figurative sense, as far as like all the things that you do. And I've talked to a lot of comedians. I've had the privilege, and they all say the same thing. They've been doing these Zoom type shows, and they are sort of equating it to like the methadone to the real thing. And it's just not quite getting them there to have that human connection, if that makes any sense, that we need.
Total sense. You said, first of all, 2 years ago, nobody knew what the word Zoom, or they knew what the word Zoom meant, but it was the sound of a car going by. But they didn't know what Zoom was. And I remember with, learning what it is, I thought, oh, good. So we could connect, we could talk, but it's really just, glorified FaceTime. It's not really, I'm not there, and I could see your eyes, but I'm not in the room. There's something about, nobody's thrilled. Oh, I went to 3 parties last night on Zoom and I'm so tired out. It's not the same thing. It gives you access, but it doesn't feel the same. And it's that subliminal feeling that you can't explain of being in the room with somebody. It's kind of like people who watch porn online, or do you want a live person in the room with you doing it? I think a live person in the room doing it doesn't compare to watching it on a screen.
I love that.
So assumptive. But
yeah, that's hilarious. So assumptive. I think you're probably right. as someone who doesn't necessarily consume it, but does appreciate affection from another human being. I sorry, I'm trying to get my composure. That I wasn't expecting that. That was really funny. It's just kind of like
I love the fact that you're so taken aback that you weren't expecting anything funny from an interview with me. I'm
no.
so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm taken aback that. No, I love that. I love your honesty. I'm just taken aback. I did not expect any humor today. That's
No, I
not,
mean the porn reference is what I meant. Just the
or you didn't expect porn today.
yeah, no.
Well, think porn and you think Howie Mandel, it's almost like the same word.
That's funny. Yeah, I love it. I just think that it's crazy what we've been doing, and I was hoping to start doing a lot of these interviews in person prior to all of this happening, and then now Zoom has become a verb that we use every day, which brings me to the first thing I definitely want to talk about is your podcast, because I just listened to your recent episode, and again, just the hilarity ensues, especially with the fact that you're with your daughter and the things that you guys talk about. How did the podcast come about? Like, it's just, I think,
I never thought about doing a podcast. So because I feel like a trapped animal in my home. And the fact that the hardest thing for me specifically was the inability to be with my children. You know, my children were worried about me. I'm 65, and so they weren't around, and I have grandchildren. They weren't around, so I would incessantly call them all. Jackie specifically, Jackie Schultz, who's an influencer in her own right. You know, she's married with 2 kids. And we would spend hours on the phone, and we would start making prank phone calls together, and we would just laugh and sometimes be inappropriate. And my wife would walk in the room and say, well, like, who is this for? Like, you guys are just acting like idiots, and it's like for nothing. You should record it. And I said, record it for who? She goes, it doesn't matter. Just record it. And lo and behold, that's the podcast. So we do, me and my daughter, we call our friends, we prank call people. We've talked about serious subjects. We talk about, it's just, we call the family, and then it ends up, just because of who we are, usually ends up in an inappropriate, funny, awkward, uncomfortable area. But that's who we are. And that's all. Howie Mandel does stuff. Available on all platforms.
yes, and we will definitely link it to our show notes so people can access. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have listened to it. I mean, podcasts are just in a boom. Even in the last year since this whole crazy thing happened, people started podcasts, and and they say, well, this is like the new golden age of entertainment as far as podcasting goes, because it's just so accessible to have conversations with folks like yourself and other celebrities, because it's this medium that allows us to have this conversation. You know what I mean? Like, unless I was a contestant on AGT or Deal or No Deal, we might have an exchange. But I think outside of this, it just allows people to talk about things that they might not normally discuss in an open forum, as far as having one-on-one conversations, whether it's with your kids or other folks, right? And it's great. It's almost therapeutic.
It is. And I didn't even think of it that way. So can we talk about the fact that I'm chafed?
Sure.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to. But I just realized that if I wanted to, the podcast is the place to talk about it.
And people will listen to it, because it's funny. As a side note, this new docuseries, I think, came out on HBO called Wall Street, about following Mark Wahlberg around for a year while he's getting ready to do these business deals, and the pandemic hits, and how he struggles just as much as everybody else does as far as making financial decisions. My point being that it's instant entertainment. Like, it's like, I want to watch this because it allows me to have access into a world that I would never have access to. So we joke about it, but I think people would want to hear, the struggles that Howie Mandel has on a daily basis, because it's not just entertaining or sensationalism, but it's therapeutic. That's how it started for me, talking about my divorce, and then it's turned into this. But then for you, I listen to your show because it allows me to have access to how you interact with your children, which I think is great. I mean, being a father to me is the greatest thing out of all of this. It has to be, you know, or things don't really matter. In my personal opinion, being a father is the best.
Well, it is the best. It's also the most important thing you can do, and it's not taken lightly. And then once you have a child, you know, when you're in our business, you know, a question that's asked a lot. Maybe it's our business and being my age. They go, "How do you want to be remembered?" You know, or what do you want people to say about you when you're gone? Which is kind of a depressing question. You know, I got a spot or on a show or an interview on something, and they're saying, "So when you die," you know, but my answer is always the same. I don't give a shit if anybody remembers or knows anything that I did. My legacy and my footprint on this earth are my children, you know, and that's all that that's the most important thing that you can do, is create and set free a human being that hopefully makes this world a little bit better for that person being here. And that's so much more important than the silly little jokes I tell and the goofy little things that I do. So nothing has changed my perspective on life more than becoming a parent. You know, I thought that I would grow up and have children and teach them about the world. And I've said this many times, but I grew up and had children, and they continue to teach me about the world, because you learn how people are affected by who you are, what you say, what you do. And that's why they are the way they are, you know, even genetically. You know, if you pass on, and I did, you know, like you just said, ADHD, I have ADHD, and so do my kids. My kids, I don't think there's anybody alive that doesn't have a mental health issue, but, you know, Jacqueline, and she'd be okay with me saying this, does therapy also and has OCD, and, you know, as much as I feel guilty about that, I can't help genetics. Well, I could have not procreated, but too late. She's here.
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things for me to get past, honestly, was when he was first diagnosed. And it's just recent, within the last few months, I felt this overwhelming sense of, geez, you know, man, I can't believe that's the one thing, you know, again, I'm 46. I got a late start with having children, and his mom, she's being diagnosed as well. So we're both kind of contributors to it, but it's really kind of a daunting thing to hear, especially when you start talking about potential medication for it and catching it. And she says she don't think she would have recognized it had she not been homeschooling him, that it may not have gotten picked up on, you know, as early as it did in the public school system. But I digress. It's just crazy to think about. But kind of looking at your career and all that you've done, I've heard you say this before, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You really didn't start out in all of this to be famous or to be successful, right? You just did it because it was something that you were dared to do, comedy, and you did it, and it just happened to.
Well, that's part of my ADHD, and you know, I kind of just do it, which is a great, you know, Nike's done really well with that saying, but not that having any of these issues is a blessing, but, you know, I talk about everything I've ever been in trouble for, expelled for, gotten yelled at for is what I get paid for. You know, when you have ADHD, which I wasn't diagnosed with, I am now diagnosed. I was a spokesman for adult ADHD for a while, but you don't think of ramifications. You don't think, you know, it's just like you just do. And sometimes that becomes problematic. But in my case, one of the things that I just did was dare to get up on stage and in the moment to be to do stand-up comedy. The joke was going to be, I'm overthinking it now, but I didn't think about what would happen. But I thought, yeah, it'd be kind of funny because I'll go, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel, and I'll show up and I'm not even a comedian. And then when it did work out for me, I thought, oh, this is a great place to stop 2-3 times a week. It was Yuck Yucks in Toronto. This is a great place to drop in. You know, I can work, make a living. I'm engaged to be married. And now I've found this, you know, I'm not in the sports. So I wasn't playing basketball one-on-one a couple times a week. I'm not into gambling. So I didn't have a poker game to go to. And I wasn't into clubbing. So I didn't dance or drink. So this is like a hangout that would be fun, with no thought to have any recognition or even make this a living, like this would pay the rent. No, but it was fun to just go act like a goofball. And every door that has opened for me since, and I realize, my philosophy now at this point, and from this vantage point of being 65, I think everyone has opportunities. I don't think everyone recognizes opportunities. And opportunities may not, I'm sure you'll have listeners who go, well, I didn't have any opportunity. But you do. I can't tell you what they are. And there are even opportunities to make bad mistakes and even get hurt. But those are opportunities. And because you didn't do that, then you didn't move in any direction. I think that most people just try to cling on to what they're doing and how their life is. And then the world changes around them and they're just always clawing to keep up. And when an opportunity arises, and maybe that's the wrong word, but when something arises, we have a tendency to think, not people with ADHD, but most people think. And I think we can overthink ourselves out of why we won't do that. And it's safer to not do that, because if I do that, I could be humiliated. Listen, I'm not a comedian. If I walked on stage, it could be, if I thought about it, it could be really embarrassing. Number one. Number two, it's probably a waste of time. I don't have any aspiration to do this. And I'm taking the time away from somebody who really cares about doing this and wants this as a career. And even if I did want it as a career, what are the chances of some guy in the suburbs of Toronto, this idiot even making a career? And number four, I'm engaged to be married. I'm making a living. So what am I going to change? Why am I changing my career? I'm doing well. There's no reason to do this, but just blind non-thinking, so I did it. And it could have failed, but even if it failed, that'd be okay. It'd be a funny story to tell. The one time I went on stage, everybody's got these embarrassing moments in their life. And you want to take something away from every moment, even if that's something to take away is, I'm never going to do that again. That's a good lesson. Everything is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to fail, an opportunity to learn something, an opportunity to maybe have that tool that you garnered by doing that. The glass is half full for me. And I just believe that I forget, even now with my ADHD, I forget what the question was. And I find I'm in the middle of an answer and I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore. But it's led to words, which is a paragraph. And soon it's going to be an entire, unless you interrupt me and tell me what I'm talking about.
No, I just asking about kind of starting forward with comedy, that it was really something you did to sort of help work through the things that you were struggling with, but it's obviously worked out well for you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, and then it was just a fun thing. And then it was, I came down to LA on a vacation and I knew some comics because I played Yuck Yucks, and a guy by the name of Mike Binder from Detroit, who's an established writer, director, producer. He just produced on Showtime that special about the golden years at the Comedy Store. And he got me on at the Comedy Store. He said it would be fun to do, you play in America. So I got on, and there was, as luck would have it, there was a guy that was producing a comedy game show called Make Me Laugh in the Audience. He saw me, he said, you want to do TV? I said, yeah, that's why I'm in Hollywood. I want to do TV. And he said, come to my office tomorrow. It's the first time I was ever on a television lot, a movie lot. It was KTLA in Los Angeles. And I went there. And he said, try to make my secretary laugh. And I made her laugh. And they taped 5 shows and had a great story to tell about my vacation, that I had actually taped a TV show, which was not on in Canada. And when that aired, I was still working at what I was working on. And when that aired, I got a call from the Mike Douglas show and then the Merv Griffin show. And I would commute back and forth in my regular life and then do these little appearances. And then it grew into a career. And now I'm on your podcast.
Yeah, well, we're honored to have you. It's just taking advantage of those opportunities that come along and not being fearful of them. Or if you are fearful, just doing it anyway.
I'm afraid of everything. So I live in fear. My fuel is fear. And you're right, taking advantage of every opportunity, good and bad. I just do. I fail and continue to fail so much more than I succeed. I know people listening, I believe that I succeeded. And for me, success is just happiness, or just contentment. If I can find in a moment, I'm always just scraping to find a moment of being content. And whether that contentment comes out of getting a laugh, whether that contentment comes out of, holding my child, or doing a podcast with my kid, or looking at my grandkids, I'm just chasing contentment every waking moment of my life.
Yeah, I can 100% relate. And just looking at all the earmarks of the big things that you've done, as we wrap up here, I want to talk about AGT, because I have to imagine the draw to that has to come from just all your other experiences, and really hopefully being able to give other people opportunities to experience success, right? And to get their gifts out to the world and to be known to other people, especially the ones that you have discovered who are super talented, right? By your measure.
Right. But it's kind of a dichotomy, because I love it. I feel like I'm the luckiest guy in the world that I was watching it for the first 4 years that it was on without being on it, because I'm fascinated by anybody doing anything, even when I don't understand what it is they're doing. I watch TV 24/7. I have FOMO. I'm on the internet, from TikTok to Instagram and watching everything, things that aren't even in English. I don't understand what I'm looking at. And the thing about it is to be in the room on AGT when somebody walks on that stage that's had a hope and a dream, and as soon as they hit that X, their life is never the same, because they've been on AGT. They've been in front of at least 10 to always all the way to probably 100 million people. Once it gets on YouTube, they're known. They get known. They have hang on, my phone is you still there?
Yes.
Okay. I had a robocall come in, which I like, because apparently my warranty is overdue on my car. And I won something from Marriott. So I've been really lucky this week. But anyway, what I was saying was, so my heart goes out to anybody, because I kind of put myself in that position of walking out there. The problem is that I try to be, I think sometimes honesty can be construed as negativity, but I want to be honest and constructive and, give my opinion. That's the hardest part, especially to a young person, to a kid, but I try to be positive, but I am positive about thinking that I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be able to be sitting there.
Yeah, I would say so. And this year, a lot of it has been virtual because of the pandemic. So I imagine that has to lend to a little bit of extra interest, right? As far as being able to get people in and out and all of that. And hopefully you guys can do live.
No, this year it's not virtual. Last
Oh,
year
it's not. Okay.
Had a lot of virtual. They are there live. We're COVID restrictions are applying. I'm not going up and giving anybody a hug, but they're there live. There is the semblance of an audience, so people are reacting, and it's actually more explosive this year than it's ever been, because I think people have this pent up year that they're coming out of. So and it's going to play. I can't wait for everybody to see AGT.
Yeah, it's the one summer show that I like that I can watch with my kid, because he loves the animal acts. I think those are his favorite.
We have and different animals, not just dogs. Wait till you see it here.
Love it. Well, there's the podcast, which is amazing. There's your book. There's Deal or No Deal, which has lived in infamy in casinos across the country. Yeah. And I've played myself in one, so I'm excited. And just really, I think overall your career has been great, and it's kind of inspiring to just hear all the things, and to also know that there's the honesty and the human side to things as well. And I really hope people listen and take advantage of your podcast and read your book, which is great. And just all the things that you're doing, it's great. And hopefully you don't continue to drive your family too insane, but hey, it is what it is, I guess. I know I'm driving my kid nuts.
I got vaccinated so that I can, she puts me outside sometimes.
I love it. Yes, I just got my second shot yesterday, ironically, so feeling pretty good. But
Take it easy, stay healthy. Thanks for having me, and continued success, and my best to your son.
thank you. Thanks for joining us today, Howie. I appreciate it.